Hello there, this is Fabiola Martinez and I'm here to do a part 4 on our Stitch Composer program. And I don't want to waste a whole lot of time reviewing what you're seeing on the screen right now, because if you have watched videos 1, 2, and 3 of my Stitch Composer tutorials, then these should become more familiar to you. So I don't want to spend some time doing that right at this moment. What I'm here to do today is to use another function in our program, in which when we are in this View tab up on our home screen, we are going to be inserting a backdrop image and we are going to be digitizing from that. So I believe that in my earlier tutorials what we did is we kind of just winged doing some simple little applique stitches and that kind of thing. And today I just want to talk a little bit more about using the backdrop image, because frankly this is one of the ways that I have created most of the stitches that I have successfully digitized in my Stitch Composer program, was by using my backdrop image. Now what the backdrop image is it will allow you to insert a little picture of a decorative stitch or some other kind of a pattern, so that you can use that as the backdrop image for you to know exactly where it is that you want to place your stitch points in order to create your stitch pattern. So I'm kind of a cheater. I have, in a good way though, I have another brand of sewing machine that has many beautiful decorative stitches. And so one of the ways that I have been able to access some backdrop images is that when I first got that embroidery machine, it's an embroidery / sewing machine, I stitched out every single decorative stitch that machine had. And it was about, I'm just going to say roughly somewhere between 300 and 400 different decorative stitches. And I took pictures of some of those decorative stitches and I was able to save them as a JPG image, which I could then insert into my Stitch Composer program, and I could use those little pictures as my backdrop image. Now another way that you can get some backdrop images for yourself is that you can go to different sewing machine sites, and on the sites practically every single recent sewing machine is going to have an online manual. So for example, if I have my other brand sewing machine, I have downloaded a manual for it, and some of the things that you will be able to see within that manual are going to be pages that may have some decorative stitches that are in the sewing machine. You can use your little snip tool, which is on one of the accessories that's available in your Windows-based programs, to take little pictures. It's kind of a little drag and drop method, so that whatever is on your screen, you can use that snipping tool to access a picture. Now you will see that when I open this PDF document that I've got a little hourglass showing on my screen. For some reason when I am recording a video, it does not allow me to successfully open and access information on a PDF file. And that's why you are seeing this little hourglass here in the middle of the screen. So what I did in preparation for creating this video is that I took used my snipping tool to access 2 of the stitch patterns that are here out of this page in this book. I did a snippet of this one right here, this 713, and then I also did one of 715. This little crescent leaf shape is one of my favorite decorative stitches that was on that machine, and I do not have that particular stitch on my Janome 15,000 or my Janome 12,000. So I created this particular stitch pattern as a stitch composed file, and it stitches out very beautifully. So I'm going to minimize this PDF because I don't want it to continue causing me problems. Down on the bottom of my screen, you're going to see that where I am circling my cursor right now, I've got this little image, and this is the snipping tool. If you have never used the snipping tool before, the way that you can begin to use it is that you can type into your search toolbar down on the bottom of your screen, start to type in the word snipping, and the screen will pop open and it tells you that this is an app. Your screen is going to look a little bit different than mine because I actively use my snipping tool, and one of the things that I have done with it is I do have it pinned to this taskbar. This is what this bottom bar on your home screen is called. It's called a taskbar. And as you saw a while ago, there's my snipping tool parked in it. So it's always available for me to use whenever I want it. So this screen is going to look a little bit different on yours if you do not have your snipping tool open and on your taskbar. If you were to select this function here to open the file location, it will find that snipping tool for you. And this is the pathway. I'm not going to bother to read it to you of where the snipping tool is available. If you come to the snipping tool right here and you right click on it, this little window will pop open, and one of the little options it's going to give you when you do that is, instead of it saying unpin from the taskbar, yours will say pin to the taskbar. And when you select that option, it will pin that snipping tool down on the taskbar just like mine is down here, and it will be available for you to use it. Why is that helpful? Because then you can open up one of those manuals, or maybe you're going to see a decorative stitch somewhere on a project that is somewhere on the internet, and you will be able to take a little snip of it and you will be able to insert it as a backdrop image here in Stitch Composer. Now, one of the things that you may have noticed, I'm going to open this PDF up again, is that this stitch is in here in a vertical alignment. Now, what will happen on your Stitch Composer program is you actually need to have that snip as a horizontal alignment. In other words, if the stitch is going to be stitching from left to right, which is really, this is a needle on your sewing machine and it's going to be actually stitching in this direction, right? So this is actually the back of your foot and this is the front of your foot. As you visualize this stitching out on a sewing machine, you still need to have that image inserted in here in the direction of the stitch as you want it to be designed. So because that image here was vertical, I need to open up my image and I need to rotate it so that it comes in a horizontal position. So I think I probably should have done that before I began this video. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to do that, and then we will proceed from there. Okay, so I am back, and what I have on my screen right now is I've opened up the place where I have stored some stitch pictures. It's in my Horizon Link Suite folder, which is in Documents. This is an automatic folder that gets created whenever you installed your Horizon Link Suite on your computer. So this is the picture right here that I just snipped a little while ago. This one here you're going to see is ready. I have rotated it into the horizontal position. This one is still in the vertical. And what I'm going to show you is that if you double click on a picture in your computer, probably it's going to default into this Windows Live Photo Gallery. This is just, again, one of the built-in functions of your computer. This little picture is available for me to rotate it. So down here on the bottom right of my screen, I've got two little buttons that I can push either to rotate it to the left or I could rotate it to the right. I'm going to choose to rotate left. Now it has been automatically rotated, and when I close this window, it is going to save it in that orientation. Okay, I'm just going to minimize it for right now. And what I'm going to do is come back into my Stitch Composer program, and I am going to insert that picture as a backdrop image. So here I am. I'm in the View tab. I'm going to select Backdrop Image. It's going to go to the last place where I was at before I inserted a backdrop image the last time I used my program. So where is my image? It's in my document folder. It's in my Horizon Link Suite. I'm double clicking here. I'm coming into my Stitch Picture folder that I was just at a while ago. And I'm going to actually work on this baby lock design right here. Oops, I just told you the name of the design. This one here you'll notice, because I didn't close out my program a while ago when I was in Windows Live Photo Gallery, it actually did not save it in the orientation. But this is the one I want to work on. So I'm going to say open. There it is. It's rather large and it's pretty blurry. The reason it's pretty blurry is because I had already really expanded this design when I was looking at that PDF in my computer. So here it is. And the secret that I have noticed about getting an actual really nicely digitized Stitch Compose program is that you really need to enlarge this little snip pretty big in order for you to get a really good stitch out. So what do you see on the screen besides this blurry image of my little stitch pattern is you will see that I've got a cursor with a north, south, east, west directional arrow in the middle of it. When I depress my left mouse button, I am able to drag this wherever I want it to go. Now you don't actually see that image moving right now, but you do see that this boundary box is moving. What I want to do is, see, this is the beginning point of my stitch design right here. I want this to be right on the vertical 0.0 millimeter line. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this over so that I get this starting point on this vertical 0.0 line. Okay, from there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my arrow buttons, and I'm just going to drag this design and get it as big as I possibly can within the width of this space here. The reason I want to do that is because I want this decorative stitch to have the capability of being at least the full, I call it 9 millimeters wide, but actually it's not 9 millimeters. It really is about 8.6 millimeters wide, or maybe even 8.4 millimeters. It's not the full 9 that we think we have whenever we're designing in Stitch Composer. I hope that makes sense without confusing you too much. So one of the very basic functions about playing with images is you can always use this corner buttons, and you can drag them and it sizes it proportionally. Each time I do this, I have to make sure that I wiggle my design back so that my starting point is always going to stay at 0. I can also use my zoom out button up here in the view tab so that I can just get this screen a little bit smaller so I can play with this image. I'm going to drag it down. I'm going to drag it down some more. I just really want this to get big and fluffy fat. Okay, again, I'm staying on my 0.0 for my starting point. From here, one thing I have discovered also is make it a lot longer and skinnier than you think you need it. I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger, dragging it way out. And again, I'm just going to continue playing with this image. This is probably not the best design that I probably could have chosen for you, because it's taking quite a bit of work and time in order to get this image pretty much maximized here within my width of my stitch that I can possibly use. My 0.0 is still here. Starting point is still about there. My width is pretty much filled up now. You can see that my design is up here at the top and about down here at the bottom, which I like quite a bit. And I think I'm just going to stretch it out just a little bit longer than looks like I need it. Okay, so from here what I'm going to do is go ahead and lock this into position by clicking the lock button. This is already a fairly transparent image, but if I felt like it was a little bit too dark and might get in the way of me being able to see my stitch points, then I would go ahead and select this transparent button right here. If I decided I did not want to continue trying to work with this image, I could just select this delete image button right here and it would go away and I could start fresh. Okay, but for right now I'm going to begin to zoom in a little bit because I do like to work kind of close, about like this sometimes. Sometimes I get a little bit bigger even, but just whatever is comfortable for your own comfort as you start to digitize this design. Go back to your home tab and you will be able to begin to place your stitch points. Now, the thing that I want to really stress with you as you're watching me create this stitch pattern is that whenever you've inserted a stitch like this, and let's just say it's a actual decorative stitch, you have never had the opportunity to see how it actually stitches out, then you are going to have to look at this and you're going to have to figure out what is the most logical and beautiful way that I could create this stitch pattern so that it stitches out nicely. Now, obviously, you are always going to have to start at your 0.0 vertical line, but you can start anywhere within this stitch spacing, anywhere along here. And in a little while, we can go into our special extra settings over here and we can do some final tweaking. So as I'm looking at this design, I'm going to see that even though my image begins about right here, you know, just a couple of millimeters, ooh, excuse me, I did not mean to place a stitch point, a couple of millimeters above the bottom, or which is going to be the left side of your presser foot. Over here on the end, it's going to end right down. So I think that what I'm going to do as I create this stitch is on my first stitch point is going to be placed on the vertical 0.0, and I'm going to start it all the way down at the left side of my foot, which is the bottom of my screen. And then I'm going to come along and I'm going to place the little stems back and forth until I get all the way back to my ending point, so that then the stitch can repeat itself. So I hope that that makes sense to you. So I'm going to digitize rather quickly. And one of the things that I'm also going to make notice of is that another opportunity that you have to be creative with your decorative stitch as you are digitizing it is that you can always backtrack on your to make your stitches just a little bit thicker with your decorative stitching thread. Okay, so as I digitize this, I'm going to talk about that as I'm going. So my first stitch point is here at 0.0 vertical. I will select my stitch, and one thing you're going to notice again is that you're going to have a limitation about how far in this direction from left to right you're going to be able to go. Your maximum stitch length will be 5 millimeters. All right, but when you go from top to bottom, you're going to have the full width available to you. So if I look at this, do I want my first stitch to go all the way up to here? If I did, I'm just going to go ahead and place my stitch point. Do you see that that really is a very straight diagonal line, whereas my leaf shape is actually a little bit curvy? You see that in the background image. I'm going to hit my backspace button and I'm going to delete that. I'm going to look at this amount of space and I'm going to divide it visually by about 2. So my first stitch point is going to be about right here. I'm going to backtrack on myself, go back up again, come to here, backtrack, back up. My choice now, do I want to go down and up or do I want to go up and down? I think I'm going to go up, down, down, and up. Here I'm going to do a triple line, so I'll do 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go, this time I noticed that I think I want to begin to do a couple of little curvy shapes here. So my next stitch will be about here. My upper one will be about there. I'm going to backtrack on myself like this. I'm going to come down here, back up, backtracking on myself. This time I'm going to go about there, there, backtrack. So I'm actually getting a triple line here on this main stem. Okay, here I think I'm going to just be shy of the upper limit on there. I'm going to come down, backtrack, triple line in through here. This time I'm going to go all the way up to the upper limit, back down, about like that. So you see what I'm doing is I'm just kind of winging it for right now. I'm just going to begin to go a little bit quicker now so I can get through this. Because I will have the opportunity to come back into this stitch pattern and I can tweak my stitch points. Oh, I don't remember if I backtracked on that a little while ago. 52, 60. I'm going to backtrack a whole bunch. I'm hitting my backspace button and eliminating all those stitches because as I was talking, I kind of lost track of what I was doing with you. So 1, 2, 3. There we go. 1, 2. Backtrack. Is this right here where I sometimes forget? Backtrack. There we go. And we'll do that. 1, 2, 3. Up and over. 1, 2, 3. Oops. 3. So here I go with, I think here I'll stick with, do I want to do a single spread? I think I'll just go back and forth like this. Too much space. So see, even as you're designing your stitch, you have opportunities to use your backspace button and just kind of make some corrections right off while you're still there. Here, what do I want to do here? I think I'll come like that. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Now here I am at the ending of my stitch pattern. So I think I'm just going to kind of look at this flow, and I probably will come down and do a 1, 2, 3 and finish it off there. I'm going to come to my simulation button. I'm going to say play, and down here on the bottom of my screen we'll see this leaf begin to create itself. Just to get a little picture of what is it actually looking at. I can see that I've got a couple of spaces where I could move some stitch points. All right, and that's basically how it looks for right now. I'm going to go to my home screen, and I'm going to turn on the point and move button, and I'm just going to come in here and see some of the places where I know I need to move some stitches. Now, when I'm doing this, I usually like to come over to under the view tab. I like to not see the stitch number, so I take the stitch number function off so that way I can see the points a little bit better. At this point I might zoom in a little, and over here I'm going to move a stitch point. I'm just dragging that with my left mouse button just to a little bit better position. Over here I think I'm going to come down a little on that one. I think this one will give it a little bit more of a shallow shape. See what I'm doing? I'm just kind of playing with this to try to get a little bit better flow of my decorative stitch. So here I think I'm going to move that about there. This one here I think I'm going to come back. Maybe I'll come down a little to give it a little bit softer of a curve. So see, just play around with your stitches a little bit until you get what you feel is going to be just a very nice flow to your decorative stitch. Moving each one of these, you have to move them all individually. You unfortunately can't grab a whole bunch of them too easily in this program. You gotta have to play with it some. All right, so I think I'm going to zoom out a little. Oh, over here I needed to move one. A couple of points there to get a little better feel there. This to me looks somewhat awkward. I'm going to move that back up. And I think I'm going to move this over a little bit. I think I'll move that over a little bit. This one quite a bit. Okay, and I think that for right now, I'm fairly satisfied. So this is going to be my starting point. This is going to be my ending point. The next thing I'm going to do is back in my home screen, I'm going to turn off my point and move function. I'm going to add in what is called the lock stitch. So basically this finishes my stitch pattern for me. When I select that, you're going to notice that it added in a couple of extra stitches over here, which is a tie-in. And it added in a couple of extra over here at the end of the pattern, which is my tie-off stitches. One thing that I have discovered, this is just a personal preference, is that I like to zoom in on these once I have created this finishing step, and I will turn on my point and move button again, and I can move these lock stitches. And I really like to have them right close to one another. I don't put these ones right smack on top, dab on top of one another, but I move them so that they're very close. For me, it just gives a nicer start and end to my stitch pattern. So I'm also moving these ones. You know, you can move them. It's not going to break anybody's heart if you choose to do that, and you will get a nicer stopping and ending to your stitch pattern. I promise you, you will. I think you'll be happy that I showed you that. I'm moving these little stitch points because I'm trying to go for a little bit softer curve here now that I'm zoomed in on it. I have successfully done this Stitch Compose program, stitch pattern before, and so I don't really need to do it again. I'm just doing it to show you. Now, in extra settings, when you turn this on, you are going to be able to create some comments here about your design. You might want to say this is so-and-so pattern, you know, stitch number such and such, to help you keep track of what the comments are. Under here, under your stitch length and tension and all of these things, I typically leave all of this at the default that the program has set for you. I sometimes have changed them and I have gotten some good results, is something that you need to play around with. I'm not going to be a great authority on it because sometimes I get good results by changing these minimums and maximums, and other times I do not get good results. So basically, I typically will leave it there like it is. Thread tension, I have occasionally played with this to get different effects on a decorative stitch. For example, when I made a French knot, which was a great improvement over the French knot that comes with our machines, I did play with this tension and got some good results. Maximum speed, I always just leave it at the 700 stitches per minute. The stitch type, this is important. If this is a design that you want to be able to repeat over and over again, like it's doing right now in the stitch preview down here on the bottom of the screen, I leave it as a loop. So basically what loop means is it's just going to continue, continue, continue. If you select the monogram, it will add in a different way of the way that it ties off, and basically your stitch pattern will kind of be saved as a design that only wants to repeat itself one time rather than looping. Okay, and sometimes I have created some decorative stitches like this French knot, for example, that I do save it as a monogram or a one-time stitch pattern. Your needle position, you have the choice of where, when you open up this design in your sewing machine, where do you want the needle position to default to? So in order for this stitch pattern to stitch out in the way that I want it to, I want my needle position to be on the left side of my presser foot. Okay, because as I had said before, the bottom of the screen is the left side of your foot, the top of the screen is the right side of your foot. Your needle is here and it's stitching in this direction. So this is pattern, the way that it is pictured on my screen, it's starting in the left needle position. And you do need to set that according to however you have created your stitch pattern. Presser foot, it's a decorative stitch, and so I want it to be presser foot F, which is one of my decorative stitch options. I will then say OK, and my stitch pattern has been saved with those, or not actually saved yet, but it has been created with those parameters on it. So the next thing that you would do is I do not have a USB or the direct connect cable connected to my program right now onto my computer. But I could at this point say write a design, and it would send it to my USB stick or directly through the cable to my sewing machine if it were connected. I always will do that. I will send this design, take it over to my sewing machine, thread up my machine with some decorative stitching thread and nicely stabilized fabric, which for me basically means that I have starched it very well and I have some nice crisp stabilizer under that fabric, and I stitch it out. If I don't like the way that it looks, just didn't stitch out like I expected it to, I come right back to my computer, and while the design is fresh in my mind, I do some tweaking to it to try to get the results that I want. And when I finally get the results that I want, that is when I finally come back and I actually save this decorative stitch in my computer in my Horizon Link Suite Created Stitches folder. So let's just say that I'm going to turn off my point and move function right now. I could come up to my applications button here and I could come to save as. The last time I created a stitch that I saved, it was in this Horizon Link Suite stitch picture folder, apparently. I'm not really sure that that's where it was, but I would open up the folder that I wanted it in, and let's just say that then I would give it the same name that I gave it when I was sending it to my write a design function. I hope I'm not confusing you by not being able to follow through with that process because I don't have my USB stick in my computer. But basically, I'm hoping that that makes sense. We're building upon information that I've already shared with you in previous videos. And so I'm hoping that this, working with a little backdrop image, was a nice learning experience for you. So go ahead and open your Stitch Composer program. Find yourself an image somewhere. Like I said, they're all over the place. Any sewing machine manufacturer that is posting any of their manuals online, you're going to be able to copy some of their stitch pictures. And yours is always going to be a little bit unique. It won't be exactly like somebody else's, and that's one of the reasons why we like to do what we do. So have fun with Stitch Composer. It's a wonderful little program, and maybe I'll be back to do another video if I see a need for it. Okay, That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.